Ever since the old Football League First Division was rebranded as the English Premier League in 1992, it has been home to many legendary players, icons, and a place where the best came to compete. However, in the early years, it wasn't the powerhouse that we know today. The Italian and Spanish league were seen as more prestigious and quality. It wasn't until the early 2000s when they started to sign massive TV deals and attracted many foreign stars that the league really kicked off. And by mid-2000s, it was seen as the richest and most competitive league in the world. With the addition of these foreign players, we've seen many iconic seasons and title battles between Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City. Records from the distant past were shattered beyond recognition as a new era of intense battle emerged. And within these battles, individual players strive to become the king of the Premier League. But there was this one player. He was never crowned king, but he managed to reach heights where not even the so-called kings of the Premier League ever managed to reach. But before he could be crowned, he left. Because of this, opinions became divided as to who actually had the best Premier League reign. But today we're going to look back at the legends who came before him and the ones who dominated after he left. And of course, we're also going to look back at 2008. And in doing so, we are going to find out once and for all if Cristiano really had the best season the league has ever seen. Before we get to Cristiano Ronaldo, we first need to look back at the legends who came before him, because only then can we see just how good Ronaldo really was. So please stay with me for a second, as I'm going to summarize everything from 1992 to 2007 in the next 4 minutes. Since the rebranding of the league, there have only been a few players who have managed to stay at the top for multiple seasons consistently. Whether it be through skills, goal scoring, creating, or just pure class, there haven't been many who have done it back-to-back. For example, in 1993, Teddy Sheringham was 26 years old when he hit 22 goals to finish as top scorer in the league. With the league being revolutionized that year, Sheringham was seen as one of its best players, and many tipped him to go on and do it again next year. But ironically, Sheringham never ever managed to hit 20 league goals ever again. Instead, he was dethroned by Andy Cole, who scored 34 league goals in the 1993-94 season and had 55 goal contributions in all competitions, carrying Newcastle to a third-place finish. Newcastle are historically one of England's most successful clubs, having won the top-flight league 4 times, but it had been 67 years since they finished that high. But as good as he was, even he couldn't stay at the top for long, because a 24-year-old striker was about to take over the league. In 1994, Blackburn Rovers came literally out of nowhere to mount a title challenge against the champions Manchester United. They would eventually finish second. But what surprised all of England was the 2 youngsters who led the lines for Blackburn, Alan Shearer and Chris Sutton, who would later be known as the legendary SAS duo. They both combined to strike 56 league goals, with Sutton having 25 and Shearer with 31. Just 3 behind Andy Cole. The next season, the duo would not just mount a challenge, but they would instead knock United off the podium to win Blackburn a historic 3rd English top-flight title, their first in 81 years. But like I had said before, not many players were able to stay at the top for consecutive seasons. But in 1996, Shearer would strike 31 goals to finish as top scorer yet again, this time doing it without his mate Chris Sutton, who was absent for majority of the season. That summer, Newcastle broke the world transfer record, paying £15 million to bring Shearer home as a replacement for Andy Cole, who had left for Manchester United. And Shearer delivered immediately, winning his 3rd consecutive Golden Boot with 25 goals and leading Newcastle to a 2nd place finish behind United. What Shearer did went down in history as the 2nd player behind Jimmy Greaves in the 1960s to finish as top scorer 3 times in a row, and this instantly made him a Premier League icon. But unfortunately, he was never able to attempt going 4 in a row, as he was hit with a knee injury for majority of the next season. But in his absence, we were able to witness the rise of 18-year-old Michael Owen, who finished as joint top scorer with Dion Dublin and Chris Sutton in 1998. But if 1998 showcased anything, it's that football isn't just about who can score more goals, because we saw exceptional performances from the likes of David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Dennis Bergkamp, and Eyal Berkovic. What these guys were doing with the ball was just pure class, and the work ethic and the way they played the game would revolutionize how many teams played. With Michael Owen's 18 goals and 11 assists, many tipped him to surpass Alan Shearer to become England's next big talent. And to be honest, he didn't disappoint, finishing as joint top scorer yet again with Hasselbank and Dwight York in 1999 at 19 years old. And in 2001, at just 21 years old, he became the first English Premier League player to win the Ballon d'Or in the modern era and the 2nd youngest winner in history. So as 2002 approached, we were closing in on the first decade of the new Premier League format. We had seen many players rose up to have great seasons. Andy Cole's record-breaking 34-goal season, Kevin Phillips had 30 in 2000, Dwight York, Dublin, Chris Sutton, they all had prolific prolific goal-scoring seasons. But there were many others like Eric Cantona, Matt Letizia, David Beckham, Giggs, Bergkamp, and Steve McManaman who didn't score as much goals. But their quality on the ball, the assists, and just the class they possessed made them stand out as some of the best in the world. But the strikers who stood out the most so far were Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Michael Owen, and Alan Shearer, as they were the only three players to finish as top scorer for 2 or more consecutive seasons. Now in 2002, Ronaldo was just 17 years old, still in Sporting's youth system trying to make his breakthrough. But elsewhere in England, a young Frenchman was about to turn English football on its head. In 2002, Thierry Henry was entering his 3rd season in the Premier League, having joined Arsenal in 1999. For those first 2 years, he had to sit back and watch as the likes of Kevin Phillips, Alan Shearer, and Hasselbank outscored him, while Michael Owen lifted a Ballon d'Or at 21 years old. And on top of that, Man United was dominating the league, but Henry was patiently biding his time. In 2002, the Frenchman stunned everyone by delivering 24 league goals to lead Arsenal to the title and dethroned United. But what was surprising is that he managed to outscore Shearer, Hasselbank, and Van Nistelrooy by just 1 goal. And in almost comical fashion, Ruud would end up beating Thierry to the Golden Boot by just 1 goal next season, as he led United to regain the title. But that's when Thierry snapped, going on a legendary run that would see him win the Golden Boot 3 times in a row in 2004, 5, and 6. And he became the first player in the new Premier League era to win the Golden Boot 4 times, and his 2004 Arsenal team being the only team to go unbeaten in the league to this day. Now, as impressive as Thierry might have been, there was a young man who many tipped to dethrone him and become the best in the league. At just 19 years old, Ronaldo had already shown glimpses of what he could do when he humbled Henry and Arsenal with a brace in 2005. But even then, he was still raw, still developing, and a long way from being the best in England. Fast forward to the 2008 season, and Ronaldo was on the verge of creating history. The season didn't start smoothly for him, failing to score in the opening game and then getting sent off in the second, which led to a 3-match ban. It took him 8 weeks to get his first league goal. But once he started scoring, he went on to hit 8 braces and a hat-trick, registering an average of 30 goals in his final 30 league games, leading United to the Premier League title. In the Champions League, he had 10 goal contributions in 11 games, including a crucial header in the final against Chelsea that helped United secure their 3rd European Cup in nearly a decade. Now I want you to pay close attention to what I'm about to say. Prior to Ronaldo, only Alan Shearer, Kevin Phillips, Thierry Henry, and Andy Cole had ever scored 30 or more goals in a Premier League campaign. But unlike these guys, Ronaldo went a step further, combining his 30-plus league goal season with winning both the Champions League and the Ballon d'Or, something nobody else ever managed to do. And that's why 2008 is often remembered as the most complete season any player in English football ever had. But that was until Erling Haaland had that record-breaking 2023 season. Haaland shattered Ronaldo's league tally by scoring 36 Premier League goals, and he topped Ronaldo's Champions League numbers with 12 goals, leading City to their first ever Champions League title. Across all competitions, Haaland produced 61 goal contributions, compared to Ronaldo's 51 in 2008. The only thing missing for Haaland was the Ballon d'Or, something outside of his control. So now that everything is on the table, it's time to answer the question: who really had the best season in Premier League history? The reason I mentioned earlier those exceptional players who managed to win multiple Golden Boots is because it shows just how rare it is to always be on top in the league. Since 1992, only 9 players have managed to finish as top scorer more than once, and I'll put them on screen. Now, with the exception of Salah, Ronaldo is the only other winger who was able to accomplish 30-plus goals. And despite Ronaldo playing fewer years in his prime than everyone, except maybe Haaland. When Sky Sports ran their AI model to rank players, Cristiano Ronaldo was placed as the greatest Premier League player ever, and he did this as a winger. Now, when it comes to Premier League legacy, I'm not saying Ronaldo is the best player ever, because we have Shearer, Salah, and Henry who have all scored more and done more for the league collectively over the years. And Ronaldo's peak was in Madrid. But if you were to ask which player had the best single season, you have to say it's between either Ronaldo, Haaland, Shearer, Andy Cole, or Thierry Henry. Shearer's peak was in 1995 when he matched Andy Cole's record-breaking 34-goal season in 1994. Andy Cole managed to hit a career best of 55 goal contribution in total, but he was later outdone by Shearer, who put up 52 goal contributions, but also led Blackburn to the Premier League title. In similar fashion, Henry would outdo Shearer in 2004 with 54 goal contributions, and he also won the league. And then came Cristiano in 2008. Similarly to those before him, he cracked the 50 goal contribution mark and won the league. But he outdid them by winning the Champions League and the Ballon d'Or. And since then, the only other player who won the league, Champions League, and cracked 50 goal contributions was Erling Haaland. Now, if we're going with sheer numbers, it's obvious Haaland is the player with the best season. But if we add trophies and individual awards, Ronaldo then slightly edges it. And considering Ronaldo was a winger who often had to create his own goals out of nothing, compared to an out-and-out striker like Haaland, then I believe this makes his season a bit more impressive. The same concept could probably be applied to Thierry Henry, who was a lot more smooth and offered more than Haaland did to his team. But overall, I believe Ronaldo is the player with the best ever league season. But if you disagree, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you agree with me, then please like and subscribe. And also tell me what you think down below.